If all rules and regulations regarding restrictions on draft picks were erased, would you draft LeBron James Jr. in the next NBA draft? He'll only be 15 years old, and his potential is high, but certainly unknown. We don't even know how tall he'll end up being. But is the reward for picking a potential superstar worth the risk being taken? Because let's be honest, most NBA draftees will not become stars. In fact, a portion of them won't even play after their rookie season. Another portion of them will never become starters in the league, and very few picks, maybe 3 or 4 each draft class, will become all-stars. So, I'll ask again, if you were in the position to, and the NBA eradicated all rules against it, would you draft a 15-year-old LeBron James Jr. next year? I'm sure some people would. In fact, I have a feeling a lot of people would. And I don't blame them. I posed this question to find out how far we are willing to go to get our hands on potential world-class talent. How early we are willing to go all in at that possible opportunity of greatness. I mean, teams draft 19-year-olds with lottery picks every year. Not too long ago, high schoolers were being drafted into the NBA fairly regularly. Kobe Bryant and Andrew Bynum were 17 years old when they were drafted into the league. Not because they were seen as instant NBA contributors, but because their potential was obvious and worth the risk. But has the league become so blinded by the opportunity to get its hands on this talent that it has taken a toll on the players, the league, and the game itself? Rookies certainly aren't getting better relative to the rest of the league. In fact, more and more young players are getting hurt every single season. At this point, it is almost expected that a handful of rookies will miss the majority of their first season, if not the entire season itself. But why is this? Why are young players getting injured so often, and is the problem deeper than we think? Well, first, we need some perspective. Here's a table displaying players selected in the first round of the 2018 NBA draft that played less than 50 games this past season due to injury. 9 players. Almost a third of the entire first round played less than 50 games in their rookie season. And this doesn't even consider players that missed considerable time due to being demoted to the G League. Yes, these 6 players weren't injured for an extended period of time, but they weren't ready for the league either. Once you include these 6 names, you are now looking at half of the first round missing considerable time due to injury or simply not being ready for the league. Half. And if we look at 3 draft classes from the past for comparison, you'll see that there weren't nearly as many players missing time on the court. The difference is staggering, and it's a discrepancy that no one seems to be talking about. Over the past half-decade, young players are having a tough time just staying on the court. Minutes are being reduced to help with load management. 19-year-old kids are dealing with injuries so significant that they are missing entire seasons at a time. All throughout his high school career, I followed Michael Porter Jr. He was the topic of one of my earliest videos. But after 2 years of not watching this kid suit up, I can't help but to be curious about his health situation. A few years ago, I was eager to watch a young Embiid lace up in the NBA. Had to wait on that. Same with Simmons, same with Fultz. Got a dose of Porzingis, now he's been out for 18 months. Julius Randle went down for the season in his first NBA game. Just this season, neither Zion Williamson or Bol Bol were ready for Summer League. Coach K spoke out saying he thought Zion should never have even considered playing in the Summer League to begin with, saying he wasn't in playing shape or the mental shape to play. Well, I don't see why he wouldn't be. He gets paid tens of millions of dollars to play the game, and he was just selected as the first overall pick. If he isn't ready to play in the NBA Summer League, then he isn't ready for the league, and pushing him to prepare for the regular season is only going to make things worse. Look at the percentage of games played by rookies in the first round throughout the past 5 years. Now look at the percentage of games played by rookies picked in the first round throughout a 5-year stretch in the 80s. It's not even close. Rookies have only played about 57% of NBA games throughout the last 5 years. In the late 80s, that number was about 77%. Peep the 2014 first round draft class. They played less than half of the total games their rookie season. 46%. Just imagine if you showed up to work less than half the time. And in comparison, check out the 1984 first round draft class. They played over 79% of the games their rookie season. Now, before we dive any deeper into this topic, I want to give a big shout out to Larry Brown Sports. They've been a huge influence on this channel, and they are a great resource for information on all things sports related. Head over to LarryBrownSports.com, download the app, and get the most exclusive and in-depth sports content. I use them to get up to date on information, and it has been a game changer. I've left a link to LarryBrownSports.com in the description below. Be sure to check them out. Now, prior to the last decade, teams selected the best talent that suited their needs, got them NBA ready, and took all the steps necessary to fill their potential in a reasonable amount of time. But in today's NBA, it almost seems like organizations are picking up the best talent at first glance and stashing them away for a year or two while they get better behind closed doors or get them injured to the point of missing a year or two anyways. This goes back to the question I asked at the beginning of the video. Instead of drafting players that can fill spots on their roster and can contribute to their game plan, teams are drafting kids the instant they pass the eye test and throwing them onto NBA rosters with grown men, strict workout regimens, and an 82-game season expecting them to flourish. It's the same philosophy behind coaches making verbal offers to 13-year-old kids. Yeah, that kid might not pan out, but what does that coach have to lose? Get them early and hope they develop into the player you thought they would. It is in an organization's best interest to get their hands on young talent early, even if they are not ready for the league. Well, at least that's the perception. Which leads me to my next point. We are all aware of the advantages modern athletes have over their predecessors. Today, nutritionists and trainers have a better understanding of how the body works and what it needs to function at 100% capacity. We have the technology and equipment to get more out of these athletes than ever before. But have we ever taken a step back and thought about the consequences of these methods of training and enhancement? Sure, NBA players in the past didn't have the resources that modern NBA players have to improve their game and physical tools. But that might have actually been a good thing. See, players back then weren't pushing their bodies to max capacity every day. They couldn't even if they wanted to because they simply lacked the know-how. But NBA players today have all the resources to push their bodies to 99.9% capacity every single time they step onto the court, even if that 99.9% isn't necessarily focused in the right direction. Which means at this point, there is no room for error. Modern methods of training have truly come down to splitting hairs. Everything is bigger, faster, stronger, which means that injuries today are much more severe, violent, and significant. Simply put, training intensity is increasing faster than our bodies are evolving. Our physiology cannot keep up with the demand we're putting on it. In a 2015 article regarding young NBA players and this increase in injuries, Brian St. Pierre, a director of performance nutrition, said that these injuries are indicative of 4 key issues players face in today's NBA. Poor sleep, in part because of technology, weaker bones, in part because of low calcium and high sugar intake, and uptick in wear and tear thanks largely to players specializing in basketball at a young age, and weaker muscles as a result of ditching traditional weight training for the latest, cutting-edge methods. Dr. Rob Newton, Foundation Professor of Exercise and Sports Science at Edith Cowan University in Perth, Australia, and former performance consultant for the Chicago Bulls between 1994 and 2002, has an interesting and educated take on the matter, saying, "Many athletes, coaches, and strength conditioning specialists are adopting fads and fallacies which have little to no scientific basis as they try to gain some competitive edge or demonstrate that they are doing things which are new or different. Often, these novel products, training systems, and philosophies are driven purely by commercial interests." So, yeah, the issue is a lot deeper than we may think. All of this resulting in consistent and severe injuries seemingly more and more often. And in the end, unfortunately, everyone loses. Young talent is either ruined or at least compromised. Teams have time, money, and resources poured into this compromised talent, and fans miss out on watching these kids develop into the players they should be. And with the one and done rule possibly soon to be eradicated, this may only be the beginning of this epidemic. How the league will begin to solve this problem is a mystery to me. But as a fan, seeing talent go to waste, seeing these young players sit on the sideline because of injuries is becoming harder and harder to watch. Gone are the days when every single rookie was picked as a means to actually improve their team. Instead, we are left with a league that cherry picks talent, profits off of them, and then leaves them to deal with these catastrophic injuries. Of course, there will always be up-and-coming talent that shows out every single game, managing to avoid any serious hiccups. But a large portion of the players coming into the league are not ready, and it's glaringly obvious. So, what is the solution to this issue? Is it even an issue at all? Why do y'all think young players are missing more and more time each season, and do you think the problem will only get worse? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And brothers, we are fast approaching 1 million subscribers, which means if you have not joined JxmyHighroller Nation yet, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button, baby. Ain't nothing to it. Hope you all enjoyed, and as always, until next time.